All right, welcome to another episode of Can You Survive This Podcast? My guest today is calling in from South America, I believe. Where are you in the world, Bryce?
I'm over in the Terracotta region of Peru. That's mountain jungle.
Gotcha, gotcha. Hopefully, we will maintain our Wi-Fi connection during this episode.
Yeah, I'm praying to the gods right now as we speak that it stays.
So, what brings you down to Peru? Why are you calling in from Peru?
Well, I have a plant medicine clinic down here called Down to Earth that my girlfriend Carol and I started. I was pursuing a plant medicine apprenticeship in the Shipibo lineage, and after I got a particular set of time done with the apprenticeship, then we decided to move to a higher elevation just due to the summers have been getting progressively hotter, especially in the low jungle. And so we found out about the Terracotta region and moved over there to specifically a town called Lamas, which is even higher than Terracotta. I think it's about 600 meters um, above sea level roughly. So it's because it's on a mountain, it's a little bit more fresh, but you still have all the jungle plants that grow in the low jungle as well.
Got you, got you. So, okay, I want to ask about your apprenticeship, but also while you were saying that, I noticed, is there some kind of animal in the room there?
Oh yeah, we just adopted a new kitten, and
Okay, it's a
he has
kitten.
a hard time. He has a yeah, yeah, he has a hard time leaving me alone. He really likes hanging out with Daddy.
Okay,
Yeah,
I saw like a tail and I was like, "Oh man," and I thought maybe it was something else besides a kitten. So I just had to
yeah.
check.
This is
So
my own tail. Been
yeah.
in the jungle too long.
So how long have you been in the jungle? Is that where
Uh, let's see.
are you living there full time?
Full time, yeah. I haven't been. I'm from Canada originally, but I haven't been back since 2019. Obviously, due to the pandemic and all all that fun time that all of us had. But I've been living down here full time since 2018. Yeah, so we're in 2024. Yeah, so like 7 years now.
So where does the story begin? Like what originally drew you from Canada to the jungle and plant medicine and a Shipibo apprenticeship? Where does the story begin with that?
Uh, well, I first heard about ayahuasca in around the year 2010 from like a bunch of media I was taking in and some podcasts that I was listening to. The subject just kept coming up and up and up. And at that point, from my prior life, where I was a musician and working like odd jobs to try and like pay the bills, because I thought that's what I wanted to do with my life. There was a sense of quasi melancholy that was really hard to put my finger on, like why I wasn't enjoying my life as much as I should have been, according to the societal standards of normalcy. No, and so after the subject just kept coming up and coming up, and then eventually I started to investigate a little bit further and read about how there's a brew that you can take in the Amazon that can give you this incredible spiritual experience, bring you into communion with your soul, so to speak. Or I mean, there's many other ways of being able to put it, but I was never really into drugs when I was a kid. I had just a handful of times where I might have taken some mushrooms at a party or something. Um, but the explanation that there's like a Gaian spirit that lives inside of this brew that can connect you with your soul really struck a chord with me, and I thought at that time that's what I really needed. And went down to the jungle in 2016, I believe, yeah, early 2016, for 2 weeks, and had an incredible experience with ayahuasca right out the get go. Really cracked me open, really got me in tune with some issues that I didn't really know how to address that were going on inside of me, some emotional turmoil that had been veiled in certain ways. And so experiencing healing from that, it really triggered my interest in it heavily because I saw all the benefits that were immediate as soon as I went back home.
Gotcha. And so what was that like? Your first time doing this medicine, you went on like a 2 week journey to the jungle. What part of the jungle did you go to? And can you talk about that experience a little bit?
Sure, sure. Yeah, I went to specifically it was called Pulse Tours. It was over in Iquitos, so it's about 3 hours roughly by boat outside of the city. Now it's switched ownership and it's Arcana now, but it was run by Dan Cleveland when it was Pulse, and it had gotten a bunch of good reviews on one of the sites, and so I decided to take the journey with them. And upon arriving there, I mean, I'd done my research and stuff, but what I found with plant medicine specifically is it almost doesn't matter how much you read about it. The experience itself is going to be something completely unique and almost inexplicable. So, and it was right from the first ceremony where all the explanations were happening about what's going on energetically, which I didn't really have too much of a foundation with understanding, even though my parents were chiropractors, very established chiropractors where I grew up. So there was a little bit of that and a little bit of understanding that with some overlap with Chinese medicine and whatnot. But um, this whole energetic healing sort of concept was quite new to me. Um,
Mhm.
but at the first ceremony where I took two massive cups, all of a sudden it all clicked and all of the language started to kind of uh, fill in the blanks as to what I was not really able to process prior. And um, even from the first ceremony, meeting spirits, seeing spirits, communing with spirits, and then my own soul was an experience that to this day I still can never forget. It's still just as fresh as it was as if it was yesterday.
Wow.
It's
That's
still
amazing.
integrating it as well because it's a very powerful experience that's very hard to forget.
Yeah. So you go down there for 2 weeks, and then what do you do after that? Like, are you like, I got to go back right away, or do you take a break, or what happens next after that first 2 week adventure or journey rather?
Well, yeah, it just had to do with implementing a lot of uh, the lessons that I had learned, and I had this journal that I brought, and I wasn't expecting to really use it that much, but I had written so much in it. I think out of like 200 pages, I'd probably written about 60 or so. I mean, I would have to go back and check, but there was a lot of it's called downloads or data, uh, revelations, and realizations about maybe things that had happened in the past, why I was getting in my own way. And I just took that opportunity to really embrace the energy that I had kind of cultivated from that stay and holding like a particular frequency and kind of going back and trying to at least conserve it, but also understanding that the environment isn't exactly going to be supportive of it. Um, and over the years, it kind of faded down as old habits started to kind of reemerge. My friend group didn't exactly change the way I had initially uh, written down in my journal to kind of, surround yourself with people who you want to be a lot more like and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But that's also, as I've learned from where I am now, that's kind of part of the process. It's almost to kind of give you like a glimpse of potential, and then you can kind of see what you have to deal with in order to get there. And sometimes that means having to come back, but sometimes it also means maybe there's another modality that kind of shines its light that might be like a better signal to go towards. But it shows itself differently for each and every person.
Did any other modalities happen to kind of pop up for you during that time?
Hmm. Yeah, Chinese medicine, qigong specifically.
Oh, okay.
Uh huh.
For anyone who doesn't know, what is qigong?
Qigong is a Chinese medicine practice, so it's an extension of Tai Chi. Obviously, it originated in ancient China, and um, though I'm not particularly like I'm not academically certified in any sort of Chinese medicine modality, but I'm
Mhm.
just a very avid practitioner of this particular part of it. Where in Chinese medicine, there's obviously working with herbs, there's massage, there is nutrition, there's qigong, and the fifth one I'm blanking
Is it
on
is it
currently.
acupuncture?
Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I used to go to an acupuncturist I had a brief stint where I guess one of the modalities that popped up for me was acupuncture. And actually
Incredible.
my acupuncturist, she was great, and she had a doctorate. She had a doctorate's degree in TCM, traditional Chinese medicine.
Hmm.
And yeah, I enjoyed the needles for a while. I felt like I got something out of it.
Que bueno.
So
What
that
were
so
you
that
using it in particular for?
Okay, so thanks for asking. What I was actually using it for, I was struggling at the time with rosacea, which is, I don't know if you know what it is, but it's like red, basically like inflammation in the skin. And for me, it
Hmm.
was like specifically like in my cheeks, kind of close to my nose. I was getting really red and puffy,
I see.
inflammation. And even the dermatologist I went to was like, yeah, it's rosacea. We can't really explain why it is, but like, try to like not be stressed and get better sleep and like don't eat spicy foods and things like that is what the dermatologist told me. So I had this friend who was doing acupuncture and she put needles in it and she also put them in other places like in my ears, in my cheeks, and in some in my other parts of my face too. And I actually I found some decrease in the inflammation. I wouldn't say it was 100% cleared, but it was less inflamed.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
acupuncture quite a bit.
Oh, you do acupuncture too, or you receive it?
No, my mother was trained in it as well. She kind
Okay.
of knew a little bit about specifically acupuncture while she was uh, studying chiropractic at the same time, and she would often sort of combine the two modalities at her clinic over in Canada. And I remember getting it used for headaches specifically. So I'd usually
Hmm.
just have the needles in my head, sometimes in parts of my forearm, and it always worked. It was
Yeah.
fascinating to me, even as a kid, but I really got a lot more interested in it as I got older.
So
Not
you,
acupuncture specifically. It was more like the qigong, but just the whole traditional Chinese medicine framework was shining a little bit more for me.
I'm interested in qigong. I don't know much about it, but I know it kind of has to do with like you can kind of imagine the energy, like between your hands and stuff. Like if you rub your hands together and then you kind of feel that friction. It's kind of what I've seen, but I don't know much about it. But I like to learn more about it.
Yeah. Well, just though, I mean, there's obviously better qualified people to speak about it because I'm still, a very humble student of it. But it has to do with, yeah, the energy centers in the body, being like the stomach, the spleen, the liver, the heart. These all in almost in a related manner to like the chakra systems. Each one has like a corresponding um, frequency that outputs into the body to help chi flow. So like the liver, um, while being one of the staples of when chi is flowing very well through it, can really help with creativity. It can help with auric protection, obviously with the heart and feeling joy and love, with the lungs, which is referred to as the metal element, breathing and pumping and being able to help circulate chi throughout the body so that you can have more vitality and life force energy.
Mm. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So here's another thing you reminded me of. I learned this from my acupuncturist, excuse me, who was trained in Chinese medicine. And every organ, according to Chinese medicine, that is what she told me, every organ corresponds with a hole in the face. So, for example, I was getting redness close to my nose. So she was noticing, okay, something's going on with your nose, and the nose is the hole in the face that's connected with the lungs. She's like, so you need to do more, be mindful of your lungs. If you're smoking, don't smoke anymore. Try to do cardio. And I don't remember what each organ is, but she was like, if you're having something you can look in your face, according to TCM, and tell which organ needs to be addressed.
Yeah, and that's the same with like being able to read the tongue and being
Hmm.
able to see if like the kidneys need some attention or the spleen is suffering. And yeah, it's an endlessly fascinating science.
So it sounds like you kind of come from maybe a line of people that work in healing and health modalities.
Yeah, definitely. My folks have been my role models for the last kind of decade, especially. When I was younger, I wasn't exactly, when you're in your regular family dynamic, you kind of think that's how everybody's family is like, no? But I had a very kind of privileged view at what quote unquote alternative health. and living that way. Um, and I can think of a scenario right off the top of my head where, when I was a younger kid and, just wanting to do regular things like play The Legend of Zelda and just kind of screw around because you're just a young kid. I would be in the basement playing this game, and my folks would have like a chiropractic table set up for people to visit on the weekends if they wouldn't they'd be able to make it into the clinic during the week. And the amount of times that I heard, "Hey," when the patients would kind of make casual conversation with me, "Did you know your mom kept me from getting surgery? Do you know your dad saved me from having to, you know, go through like this really expensive medical procedure?" But I heard it so often that I just kind of became numb to it, and it's like, okay, yep, this person's going to say this, and it's just part of the procedural thing. And then coming out into the real world, and seeing how much of a rarity that actually was, and how much of a blessing it was to have those folks in my corner and
Yeah.
as my parents, it was incredible, and it actually gave me a very stable foundation from which to pursue the apprenticeship under the plant medicine kind of umbrella, because you see that there's overlap with a lot of these modalities in some of the
Mhm.
terminology and some of the concepts. And so when speaking with them, obviously, my teacher Wheeler was who I would talk about, like with the plants and stuff like that. And but then I would also talk to my folks about how what their viewpoint is on how to approach things from a medicinal viewpoint. And
Mhm.
so having all of that really help to kind of solidify where I'm at now. Though there's still a lot more to learn. There's always an infinite. It's like an infinite layered onion that you just have to keep keep
There's
peeling back.
there's always more to learn. So,
Always.
given that your parents were kinda really, it seems like, into, like, alternative healing modalities and, like, maybe even like a holistic lifestyle, um, were they pretty, like, open and excited? Like, did you tell them right away, "Hey, I'm gonna go try ayahuasca for the first time?" Or d like, how
Hmm.
did you ease into that conversation? And maybe they were, like, pretty open and receptive to it given their history of, like, healing people and with, slightly out of the norm modalities.
Yeah. Well, I told them kind of like the last minute that I was going to Peru to do this thing. They hadn't heard anything about it, and they were a little bit, they wanted to go and Google it, do the research on it, and they saw that, it primarily was used for people who have, at least what came up in the news articles, people who were struggling with like a lot of trauma. So immediately they thought that something had happened that I had not disclosed to them, whether it came from them or some other life experience. And I've had some difficult experiences, unquestionably, but not to the same extent as some of the other people who go and are looking for healing from deep issues of sexual abuse and other traumas of that sort. I was just more looking for coming into union with myself because I felt lost and a little pulled apart by the standards of the societal expectations and didn't really know who I was. So once I kind of explained that to them, they were very supportive, though they were very worried because none of us had been to the Amazon before. But after they saw what had happened, because I wasn't exactly going down to work on issues I had with anger, but that was definitely something that I was struggling with. Very quick flare ups that, in hindsight, came from not being able to kind of put up boundaries and speak up for myself. So it would kind of sit in the basement and then something would trigger it and it would just blah, like vomit out, and people would kind of be a little bit you know it would be off-putting.
Mhm.
But they noticed that the outbursts, the flare-ups and all of that stuff greatly diminished, like weren't totally gone, but it was like 90% pulled back. And uh it was a lot easier to kind of sink into a state of gratitude and kind of lightheartedness, and I was nicer to be around, and it was very tangible. So they
Mhm.
kind of started looking into it themselves, because it was at that point that they started kind of coming to me with some of the things that had happened to them in their childhood, which we had never discussed prior. And
Oh, wow.
I had no idea about so many of these things. They carried it very well, as many
Oh.
people do who've suffered, um, you know, uh, tough upbringings and whatnot. So they actually wanted to come down when I had my first center in Pucallpa and start doing some work there. And then they've come down pretty consistently ever since.
Oh, so they tried it. They tried the medicine. They drank it.
See, yes, they have
Oh, nice.
many times.
And they like it. It's something that has been beneficial in their life.
Very beneficial, yeah. And it hasn't just been ayahuasca. There's like been the introduction with um, the other plants that help with rheumatism, arthritis. They're getting a little bit more up there in the years, so they're looking for a little bit more help with mobility issues, maybe scar tissue, and getting that kind of
I
taken away. And
That's interesting because I know they say in the Amazon the plants are like a massive medicine kit. And a lot of times on the show we're just talking about ayahuasca, but I think that's interesting that you mentioned there's other plants for like rheumatoid arthritis and things. So
yes,
that's really interesting. What kind of can you share some of the what kind of plants are those?
well, I mean, there's so many over here, man.
Yeah.
There's it depends on who you talk to with regards to like how many there are. Some teachers say that all of the plants are medicine, and
Mm.
then sometimes, depending on the teacher, they'll refer to only specific plants as master plant teachers for being able to help with medicine, or also to be able to teach medicine inside of the training that comes along with a traditional Shipibo apprenticeship. But just like for instance, there's a plant that's really good for depression and um, quote unquote malfunctioning of like the nervous system, which is Chiricsanango, which is
Oh,
a shrub that you possibly have heard of it. If
I've heard it
have
mentioned.
you've sat with ayahuasca before, right? You've been to the retreats and down here. Okay.
Yeah, I've been to Brazil.
Okay. Beautiful.
Yeah, I actually last year I went down to Brazil and I was in the Honey Queen village.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, and so I wasn't actually even at a like a retreat center. I visited them in their village in the jungle.
Oh, incredible. I still
Yeah,
have yet to travel to Brazil, but reading about the Yawanawa and the Hunikuan and all the other tribes that are over there, the Kashinawa, it's incredible the amount of tribes and practices that are over here that
yes.
I'm still unconscious of.
So since I've been there, I've heard of some of these other plants. And can you, for the audience, like, can you share some of these other plants are medicinal, but not necessarily quite so psychedelic? Is that true too?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And typically, depending on the nature of what it is that somebody's trying to heal from, a particular plant will be prescribed for whether it's physical benefits, spiritual benefits, emotional healing, and that kind of thing. Dr. Joe Tafur has uh, I don't know if he coined this term, but it's psychoneuroendocrine immunologic uh, functioning and bettering it, just the holistic sort of concept of the body. Obviously psyche meaning like the mind, the emotion, neuro, obviously with the neurons, with the neuroplasticity, and your endocrine system. Sometimes people can have deficiencies and abnormal sort of hormonal rhythms, and obviously the immuno system. It can help with the immunosupport, some of these things as well. And so, like just an example of like another plant potentially. Right now, over at the other spot that we're moving to, where our current dietero is, he's dieting a plant called bobinsana, which is very good for opening up the heart space, good for letting go of trauma, and really good at being able to give yourself self love. Um, Maybe it could be from a myriad of things why that's not there in the first place, but generally it has to do with early childhood experiences or other experiences that left one feeling valueless, or they don't know their own inherent worth. And so
Hmm.
Bobenson is very good at being able to reinstitute that or help them rediscover who they are as a divine being. But that's just coming through my filter of how I've experienced that. Other people have different explanations and different experiences with the plant, but essentially the plant, like the ayahuasca, gives you exactly what you need to put yourself back together.
That's interesting. Thank you for sharing that. We've been slowly talking to more and more people about dietas. Can you explain just a little bit about what that entails? Because I think some of the audience may have no idea and they may be wondering like, you're dieting on a plant? So are you eating a plant? Is it a shrub? Are you making tea out of it? And how can you explain a little bit about like the kind of format of how that works.
Of course. Yeah. So I'll be kind of explaining it from the biased Shipibo version because that's the tradition that I was trained in. But it essentially is a act of sacrifice, essentially, so that you can receive something from the plant that one is dieting. And when I say diet, it doesn't necessarily mean like the conventional sort of diet in the terms that or in the sense that we grow up with it, right? It's just like, watch your food intake and that kind of thing. And that's definitely a component, but this is more of a period of isolation, which is, almost like going into a monastery in a meditative sort of format. But in conjunction with that, there is a requirement. There is requirements for abstaining from salt, from oil, from spicy foods, from sex, from particular meats. And so you have this very bland, a lot of this bland food that you're taking in while also sometimes fasting, um, sometimes dry and sometimes just water fasting. And you're also taking this particular master plant teacher. And the sort of theory behind it is that you're basically, obviously, because we work with the plants, there tends to be a lot of like comparison to like what's going on with you as you're engaged with, how do I explain this? As you engage with the plant, you're starting to take on the characteristics of the plant. So your vessel, your body becomes like a garden, and you want to be able to take this plant, put it inside of yourself, and allow it to grow so that you can garner its benefits and its medicine and the things that it has to teach. So by eating this very bland diet of like, again, with no salt and and all of that stuff, um, you have like a very fertile ground for the plant spirit specifically to be able to grow inside of your vessel. And the plant spirit actually wants to come out and express itself through you. It wants to, be able to experience the world through a different lens, through humanity. And I think these archaic people had a sense that was, obviously they were very animistic in the way that they approached things, and they saw man and humanity as like growing out of the earth, so that we are extensions of the plant world. And so they are essentially our cosmic parents in some sense. And because of that, that's why they have the medicines that can help us when we're ill and things like that. They provide us food. They provide all the things that are necessary for life, including the air that we breathe. And there was just a lot more connection with nature as the true technology, and that's been preserved. I'm going off a little bit on a
You
bit of
know,
a tangent.
that's really great. Thank you for explaining so much of that. We haven't had anyone explain so much of that on the show before. And also it's fascinating to me because I have people on the show all the time, maybe people who have done ayahuasca, maybe they haven't, but it's pretty consistent that people always say getting into nature is one of the best medicines. And
Hmm.
so, and what you just said is like, we are trying to like get you back into like nature to the most extreme form in the sense that you're like actually combining nature in your body, like physically, to really
Yeah.
return you to a more nature-based state. So I can see where that would be very healing. And I know like even people that do like even like micro fasting and stuff, they say they feel better from that. And then also, we've talked about this on the show before, like fasting is one of the oldest like religious spiritual practices as well. So all these things kind of blending together in my mind, I can see where that would be very beneficial. What is it? I apologize. I have a question. You mentioned that these practices come from a very archaic people, or you said something like that, and I just what are you, I'm not sure what archaic means, so I apologize.
Okay. I guess it. Um, Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm trying to pull like the appropriate definition to mind. I think it more means, and I could be wrong about this, just more, yeah, ancient
Okay, yeah.
peoples.
Like people,
Yeah,
their practices go back a long ways, kind of thing, and
yeah, and just in terms of, yeah, again, my definition. Maybe I was using that a little bit out of
no, I just
uh,
wanted to clarify. I
context.
thought that's what it meant, but I wanted to make sure that I was understanding you correctly. that
Yeah.
it's like, practices that have been passed down for hundreds, thousands, maybe tens of thousands of
Yeah,
years.
and this definitely has been passed down for minimum thousands of years. There's been archaic or archaeological, sorry, records
Yeah.
of ayahuasca curanderismo sort of paraphernalia that's been brought up, and there's been traces of ayahuasca found on it that are thousands of years old. And so
Wow.
it's been a continuous process, and obviously it didn't come overnight. It seemed to be something that was refined over time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So you mentioned that you ended up doing an apprenticeship in the jungle, and I guess that did that involve like doing many of these dietas, or can you talk a little bit about actually like what led to the apprenticeship? Because you did the 2 week journey, and then like how soon thereafter were you finding yourself in an apprenticeship?
I see. Yeah. So after the 2 weeks, I started trying to integrate all those lessons that I had learned, and then just trying to apply them on the daily. And roughly 2 years after my first experience, I kind of had the calling to go back. And this time, I didn't really do a dieta at that point. I had just gotten quite far with just ayahuasca alone. But I was feeling the pull to go a little bit deeper with it, just to see what the plants had to reveal to themselves. In the same way that I kind of gotten um, that illogical heart-based sort of pull towards ayahuasca in the first place, I was kind of feeling the same pull to kind of go a little bit deeper with it. Try this dieta process after asking some of the curanderos who were at the center about it and talking with some of the facilitators. It was interesting. So I went down um, just to see what would happen, just to go a little bit deeper with it. And pretty soon into it, um, I had like a personal revelation that I actually wanted to be in, like, fully invested in this particular modality of healing, both for myself and to be of service to others through this way of doing things. But it was very hard for me to kind of trust the currents that were blowing me in that direction, because I already had a whole life back home, lots of friends, a steady job, and I was already I had creative outlets and everything. Like, everything was pretty balanced, so it was rather unexpected, and it would have meant that I had to kind of uproot all that and then start all over again at 27. I think it was 27, 28. But um just taking it one day at a time and processing what was going on, it did feel like the right move. And the fulfillment that I feel now from doing this work, it made it absolutely worth it. But it was not all ponies and rainbows along the way. There was definitely a lot of, there's attacks, there's trickery, there's some things that run afoul inside of the spiritual realm sometimes. And it's it's definitely very interesting, but it's not something that I would just recommend to anybody unless they really want it. Like, and I think those things are are there partly for demonstrating like a dedication to the path, because generally people, um, the quote unquote gringos like myself who come down to try and learn these modalities, uh, I'm not sure what the accurate ratio is, but right off the top of my head, it seems like 9 out of every 10 people who try and pursue this will end up dropping out, just because of the intensity and the amount of sacrifice that you have to make in order to pursue it appropriately. Yeah,
And
but
is the intensity and sacrifice, is that from like some of the dietas? Is that like part of your study, or can you talk about some of those challenges?
definitely, yeah. Well, just your material comforts to some degree. If you're going to be learning in the jungle, it's very hot. You can't have a whole lot of nice things. Even some of your clothes are going to get wrecked. I was a musician, so I brought my nice guitar down. It got destroyed. Your laptop, your technology will probably suffer if it's not built to withstand the humidity and everything. Um, Obviously, with the amount that you have to dedicate time wise, if you happen to have family or a significant other and all those other kind of time commitments, they're going to suffer as a result of having to go into isolation and just really investigate the spiritual components that the work is made of, both inside of the plant world and also seeing how it relates to the human world. Um, but yeah, and obviously like the whole dieting process in the Shipibo tradition, the way I was taught is that you have to do very long periods of this isolation and of this diet restriction with the no salt, no sugar, no oil. So if you happen to be like an athlete or you take very much like a lot of pride in how your body is portrayed in the world, if you're like a social media influencer or something like that, your chances are you're going to get very skinny. I certainly did. Um, and a lot of that, again, is just really emptying your vessel, turning yourself over to the plants and allowing the plants to kind of occupy your vessel so that they can work through you in the ceremony space. Um, there's, yeah, sometimes like going deep into what the process is like when you're, because on the surface level, it seems like, oh, well, you're just not eating these things and you're just kind of like laying in your bed and you're getting weaker and just kind of like wasting away. And it's like, what else are you doing? Is that
Yeah.
it? And but there's messages that come in your dreams about how the plant, for instance, like the Icaros that are sung inside of the Maloka space where the ceremonies take place. Those are passed from the plants to you, and
Mhm.
you're kind of like the vessel for those to kind of come through. They're not I mean, obviously you can learn them from like another maestro, like a particular melody, but having the energy of that particular plant that you're dieting with to come through is like it's a whole other level of effect that can happen for, especially for other people. They can feel it. But yeah, I don't know if that answers the
Yeah.
question at all, but
And so do you learn, you mentioned like these things coming through the plants. Do you then learn like some of the like chants and songs like in the Shipibo language?
yes, yeah. So I sing both in Shipibo and Spanish. I'm always trying to improve my Shipibo lexicon, um, or just the vocabulary,
Mhm.
because it is quite a sophisticated language, and definitely appreciate it the more that I study it, because they have like single syllables for like an entire concept. So like plant medicine healing is just rao, or rao more specifically is talking about like the roots of where the plant medicine comes from, but it's just one syllable. So there's a little bit more oomph with each and every word
And
that sort of comes from this culture.
did you say it means the plant medicine feeling or the plant medicine healing?
Healing,
Gotcha.
yeah, like the world of the plant medicine healing.
Got it. Got it. Interesting.
Uh-huh.
Interesting. And so are you running ceremonies and you're kind of like chanting to people and singing and facilitating those healing experiences for people now?
Correct. Yeah, yeah. So we have a private clinic called Down to Earth where we only take one, maximum two people at a time if they happen to want to like take just a friend with them. But like I said, we just take one person at a time because I'm still quite early in my apprenticeship, and even though I can competently be able to hold space and give people the appropriate treatment that they need within my particular, like for example, there's certain things that I can't help with. So I have other mentors that I refer other people to if there's a particular condition that I'm just like, yeah, I don't feel confident in being able to help address that. So I only work with people who I know I can help. And so there's two reasons for just doing it privately. One, very early in the apprenticeship, I don't really want to get uh, bigger than my britches, get my head bigger than my britches about
Mhm.
tackling something that I'm not quite capable of yet. And then second, it's just to be able to really address what people need, because sometimes people need a lot of attention. They come from a lot of they come from a very long way, usually overseas, to be able to kind of seek out this healing that they might have been needing for years, maybe decades. So it's very important to me as the practitioner to kind of be able to hold that space for people to be able to do the deep work that's needed. And if they happen to need extra plant baths, if they happen to need another ceremony or two, and just being really able to kind of stay with, uh, not all the time, obviously, because of the isolation component, but just be able to be there so that they get what they need prior to leaving, so that they come back better than they came and are able to be strong and powerful people in the world.
Amazing. So you're pretty much working like mostly one-on-one with people then.
Mostly, yeah. There are some exceptions where I'm working with a group called Tiwa's Awakening with my friend Luke Jensen,
Yeah.
and they have retreats sometimes over in the Sacred Valley that implements neurofeedback. There's jujitsu, there's mountain hikes. It's an amazing experience. But I've been requested to lead the ayahuasca ceremonies over there. And usually with just the ayahuasca ceremonies, it's a little bit easier to manage. But in the because I'm Shipibo trained, I like to take people through dietas if they happen to need like a little bit more of a deeper cleaning or healing. And that's where I like to kind of do things a little bit more one at a time. With the ceremonies where it's just the ayahuasca, I can facilitate competently anywhere from 6 to 8 people, depending on the night and what people are bringing to the table. So I always do intake and see like what it is that what people are bringing to the table, what they might be wanting to heal from, whether they've, if they happen to have been partakers in like black magic or something like that. I want to make sure that those people kind of get more private attention rather than um, putting them in with a group, because I want to make sure that, it doesn't hop from one person to the other and that kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Do you get that? Do you get that often? I didn't expect that to go that way, but do you get people that come in that work with some kind of dark arts or something?
Sometimes, yeah. And usually it's not really them directly who are practicing it. It's usually somebody who's like in their family, or maybe they were receivers of it from somebody, but it tends to linger.
Hmm.
Everybody comes with like a little bit of a different way in which that stuff is like come into the fold. Even, people in their family who's, it might be like a generational kind of thing. Um, so yeah, but each person's story is a little bit different about how they came to it, or sometimes they don't even know about it, and it's like, oh, that's there.
Ah,
So
interesting.
we need to
Interesting.
pull that out.
Yeah. Speaking of generational stuff, I know you mentioned that your parents came and it got a lot of benefit from it. Do you feel that has your bond with your own parents sort of grown deeper and had like any healing, or maybe you didn't need healing, but do you feel that this has also kind of like strengthened your familial connection?
Oh, without a doubt, man, without a doubt. Especially my immediate family, and it's mostly just because like they've actually participated in the ceremonies as well. So they kind of, again, they were kind of coming from it from the same perspective that I was, where they didn't really, you can say the words and stuff like that, but the level of understanding of like what's actually transpiring is a little bit different. So having them experience it firsthand and go, ah, okay, yeah, it opened the door for us to be like really honest and transparent with each other. We were kind of like that before, but there was a little bit more of uh, a guardedness about it,
Mhm, mhm.
for whether you want to call it egoic preservation, to kind of make things seem like they're okay when they're not,
Yeah.
kind of thing. But the doors really got or the veils kind of got pulled back a little bit so that we can see what's actually going on, have an honest conversation about it, and that kind of thing. So I'm very grateful that they were open to it, because the stories that I share with people about my parents coming down and everything like that, the amount of times I hear like, oh my God, I wish my folks would come down and do that too, because they need it, they need it, they need it. And yeah, it's I don't really know where I was going with that, but
Is there an age limit on this? And just for the people out there listening who are maybe wondering, like, oh, maybe I should bring my mom to this. Is
hmm
there like what are the restrictions here? What are like, do you mind me asking, like, what is your parents' age?
my parents are in their 60s. So my dad is 66, and my mom's 64. And they were just here this year and doing a little bit of medicine work. Um, my dad in particular loves the vision kind of component with it. My mom's a little bit more like, oh, it's a little bit too intense for me sometimes.
Yeah.
But both my dad and I kind of enjoy when things are a little bit more like when the visions are very vivid and you kind of forget where you are.
Mhm,
but
mhm.
there's definitely a lot of benefit that they feel. My mom had come down with a shoulder she has some melanoma that she had gotten removed from her shoulder a couple years ago, and was having a little bit of trouble, like looking at her watch and lifting her shoulder. So I did a plant medicine treatment for her with what was that, Uni de Gato, and there was some other plasters with other plants like Toei and Pinon Colorado and tobacco and other things that I would put over there to really help with that. So they were essentially there primarily for uh, like mobility issues and that kind of thing. But
Mhm,
um,
mhm.
yeah.
How many within your
Oh,
apprenticeship and I
sorry.
guess
Sorry. I just realized I didn't answer your question about like the age limit on the
oh yeah,
on
sorry.
the thing. Yeah, yeah. So I don't really think there is an age limit
Yeah.
personally. There's always like I've even gotten contacted recently by somebody who's newly retired and the kids have moved out of the house. They're in their 70s and they're from their own quote or to quote them, they want to do a lot of shadow work investigation. They want to
Wow.
take this time now that there's not really any distractions and a lot of things are kind of settled and put away to really kind of go deeper into themselves. So it kind of happens at different stages of life, I suppose. And maybe it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I think it depends on where the person's at.
It's a very strong cup of tea.
That it is. Certainly can be.
Yeah. So no age limits, but there certainly is like medication restrictions though. Like if someone's on medications, then they have to be very cognizant of that. And there's certain ones that you cannot mix, right?
Absolutely. So because the monoamine oxidase inhibitor component to the medicine, you don't want to have any sort of MAOIs in your system anywhere or near when you're going to be participating with ayahuasca. Also, antidepressants are a big no-no just for the risk of getting serotonin syndrome if they happen to be SSRIs in particular. There's also some other things that you don't really want to mix it with recreational drugs, just due to the potential counterindications that might happen with that as well. Blood pressure can get raised as well. So if they happen to have particularly bad heart conditions and really high blood pressure, it's generally a better route would be to go through like a plant dieta procedure without actually ingesting the ayahuasca
Got
itself.
it.
There's dietas that you can do as well without ayahuasca, but there's other plants that you can take for that kind of thing. Um,
Mhm.
as well as generally through our screening process as well. We don't accept anybody who has been clinically diagnosed as bipolar, schizophrenic, or borderline, just due to the fact that there's been some cases where people who have had these personality disorders have ingested the medicine and have ended up experiencing like mania or psychosis, sometimes for a prolonged period of time. So it's not exactly ayahuasca is not exactly like a panacea. So I want to be very careful not to kind of paint it as that. There are
Mhm.
some people who unfortunately could get a lot of benefit out of it, but there's a little bit too much risk.
Mhm.
And I feel it's a little bit more responsible to be able to kind of turn people away if they happen to meet those criteria.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. You mentioned Tiwaz. I'm actually having Luke Jensen on the podcast in probably like a week. So
Oh, crazy. Awesome.
yeah, just wanted to mention that. So I'll tell him that you were on, right before he
Amazing.
was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
No, Luke's a good guy.
yeah. So being that this is Can You Survive This podcast, I wanted to see if you are down for a hypothetical survival scenario.
Let's do it. I'd like to see
And
how survival mentality focused I am,
okay, I love it.
and whether I would actually survive is another question.
I'm going to give you the option here. Usually I don't do this, but this is a new thing that I started doing. I'm going to give you the option. I'm going to give you two types of scenario. One that's like a little bit in your wheelhouse and one that's like a little bit slightly less in your wheelhouse. And you could tell me which one you want to do. So what I have here is I have a psychedelic one. So it's kind of like navigating a psychedelic experience. And I also have a UFO one. So it's like navigating a UFO invasion.
I see. Okay.
So which one
Well,
I'm giving you the choice.
okay. So just given that sometimes the psychedelic one is pretty like it's pretty consistent for me. I'd like to explore a little bit more of the the one that I'm not as familiar with, which would be the UFO one.
Brilliant. All right, let's do it. Let me
Uh-huh.
let me get my notes out. I love your courage.
Here we go.
Yeah, let's do this. Get my notes out. Here we go. Thank you for bearing with me. Just got to get my notes out here.
No problem.
We'll get started. All right. So, for this scenario, you're in a home at nighttime, but you're not in the jungle, so you're kind of in more of like a city suburb location.
Okay.
And suddenly an emergency broadcast displays massive saucers are filling the skies of all major cities. Do you A, exit the house and drive to a secluded area, or B, assess the situation and prep a go bag?
I would probably just leave immediately. Chances are, if the saucers are already up there and we're just using, well, yeah, if we're just using cars, I guess it would depend on um, what the saucers are actually doing. But I would probably, at first glance, be like, oh, new pandemic's on the rise. So I'd like to go out to the cabin somewhere where I don't have to abide by the rules or whatever. But yeah, I think I would be pooping in my pantalones, seeing all those
Okay.
things up in the sky.
I don't blame you for wanting to get out of the area. And by the way, I should have said this before we started. You can always push back if I say it's B, but you say A. You can always say, hey, I would have really done A though. If you give me a good excuse and explanation, you can still get the points. So I should have
Okay,
said that in the beginning. But so for this first question, you said A, exit the house and drive to a secluded area, which I get that, but I had B, and the reason is you want to grab your go bag. You got to have
that's
a
true.
you got to have a bag of like your get out supplies. So I had B for that one, but it's okay. It's only the first question. We're gonna stick with it.
All
Okay,
right.
so you hear chaos and destruction outside. Do you run towards the chaos to investigate, or B, barricade the entrance to the home?
Barricade the no. I think I would investigate to see what it is, but from a place where I wouldn't have to be seen or noticed, if that was possible, just to see what it is that we're dealing with.
Yeah, yeah. That's actually the right way to go. That's actually the right
Hmm.
way to go. This was a little bit of a trick question because assessing the situation is correct. Because if you start barricading yourself in, but you need to get away, then so you need to assess these things.
Exactly.
So you got that
Chances
right.
are where you're going to be if you're barricading yourself and it doesn't have like an underground secret tunnel exit or anything like that.
Exactly, exactly.
Uh-huh.
Outside, the skies are full of UFOs and there's a lot of chaos. And then your power goes out. So do you A, use your cell phone to call for help, or B, try to find a working radio or landline?
Working radio and landline.
Correct. The self service is going to be a problem, with UFOs up there. So you look for a landline. As you search for a way to communicate, you hear a loud banging at the front door. Someone or something is breaking in. Do you A, answer the door and fight, or B, find a way to evade and or escape?
Escape.
Correct. You decide to look for a way to escape. As you move towards the back of the house, windows shatter and aliens begin to enter through the broken glass. Do you A, create a makeshift weapon, or B, hide inside a small kitchen cupboard?
I feel like I would probably just do the latter, but my ego wants to paint me as a fighter kind of hero type of character, and I'd say, oh, I would just turn the couch into a sword or something like that and
Yeah,
try and combat them.
broom handle or a kitchen knife, something.
Yeah, whatever works. From my understanding about aliens, I think they're a little bit more responsive to consciousness. So chances are they might be telepathic. So I've tried to use what I've learned in the plant medicine space with consciousness to try and be able to either make myself invisible or protect myself somehow.
Oh, I love that answer. I hadn't thought of that. But you could even like that's interesting that you said, what you've learned is that what people say is that the aliens are very much like in the consciousness space and they could be telepathic. So, that's an interesting idea. What you could do is
Hmm.
even try to like this could get you killed by the aliens, but what you could do is you almost could go into like a meditation and just sort of sending out like the message of peace, and hopefully that works.
Hmm. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so let's see what I have on my answer though. For this scenario, what you're gonna do is you grab the nearest large blunt object, which happens to be a fire extinguisher, and you get ready to defend yourself. Suddenly, U.S. military jets fly overhead and begin to battle with the aliens. Do you A, get your go bag and hide until the military rescues you, or B, take advantage of the chaos and try to escape?
Go bag.
You're going go bag.
Hmm.
Go bag and then escape, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
The best of both
Okay.
worlds.
Yeah, perfect. See, best of both worlds. You get your go bag and you try to escape. And as you make your way outside, you see that the city is in ruins. Do you A, try to find other survivors, or B, look for food and water?
I think I should look for food and water. Chances are the adrenaline's going to be pumping. I'll probably be hungry later, but I think I would try to see if anybody is anybody else. Am I crazy if I drank too much ayahuasca and now I think that I'm trapped in this, you know, imaginary reality? Is there somebody else here that I can talk to? I think I would probably go number one.
Okay, so you're gonna try to find someone to like ground a little bit and say, is
Yeah.
this real? Is this really happening? Okay, cool. We're gonna give you that one. That one could have gone either way, so we're gonna give you that one. A is correct. And you encounter a hostile human survivor. And so, do you A, offer to help him find food and supplies, or B, palm strike him and flee?
Is he's coming at me when
He's
that's why I would
hostile.
palm strike him.
Yeah,
Not just he's like, hey, get out of here, and then I just walk up and deck him in the nose.
he's hostile.
Okay. Uh, Probably flee if he's hostile. I don't know if reason will probably going to be our pharmacological factories are going to be producing all these fear responses. So I don't know if listening to critical, rational thought is going to be really on the table at that moment, unless the person happens to be like an experienced veteran who's like, "Yep, combat scenario, you know how to stay calm in these situations." But if he's hostile, it might be, yeah. I'll if I can, number two, yeah, B.
If you can, you're like, yeah, hit him and flee. Okay,
Yeah.
I like how you thought that one through. So we're gonna give it to you.
Okay.
And I like what you said there. Our pharmacological factories are probably producing quite the fear response right now. Uh,
Just all the
that's
adrenaline, all the norepinephrine, and whatever else is getting excited in the heat of that battle. It's
yeah.
probably going to feel like you're a mouse running through a maze.
We really are like pharmacological factories, just like naturally blasting all these different chemicals and like so many people in the world. I feel angry, I feel this, and kind of like going off about things, and then it's just interesting for me to look at it through that vocabulary of the pharmacological factory that we are. It's like, yeah, we're
Yeah.
producing so many like dopamines and all these different things, and
Yeah, and then in the realm of action is like a something that usually corresponds with that as well. So there's a whole lot of input output um, variables that come into the fold. I think there's probably, I mean, I'm not a scientist or anything like that, but I've heard some of them. There's been some debate as to like whether there's like a million or up to like billions of processes that happen in the human body on a moment to moment basis, and there's so many things that can come in and influence, you know, how you're feeling, what you're doing, what the state of your body is like. So yeah, that imaginary scenario, I would imagine there's like a lot of seeing red and just you know, hardcore animal survival instinct, monkey mind mentality is probably at the forefront for sure.
Yeah, I like how you approached the scenario though with like a some of the questions I think were tough to do it with, but you did the best you could to approach with a very consciousness based approach is what it seemed like to me, you know,
Hmm.
consciousness with the aliens and like you're like maybe I can avoid palm striking him if I can, but I guess if he's hostile I'll hit him. All right, I'm out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
don't know if I would be as calm because, like, as I'm running through the scenarios, you're like relaying it back to me. Picturing me as like trying to stay calm in the midst of all that with a vague smile on my face while going about. But chances are that's not how it it would actually unfold.
Hopefully you could take like a jar or two of medicine in your go bag though, so that once
Hopefully,
you know, once you get to safety, then you can kind of set up and, you know, maybe heal some trauma, find some people that have been traumatized by this experience and, you know,
most certainly.
help them to
Yeah,
let go.
maybe maybe wouldn't take ayahuasca right out of the get-go, but you know, maybe something a little less psychedelic so we don't forget where we are or anything.
Yeah, yeah. So
Uh,
what do you got? Anything coming up? Any announcements? Are you going to see Tiwaz anytime soon, or what else
yes,
can, you know, what's going on?
we TWAS will have another retreat up in September. Um, which dates in particular, I would have to double check. But it's going to be another 9 to 10 day retreat over there. Again, the ayahuasca ceremonies, the neurofeedback sessions, and the brain mapping, the jiu-jitsu, the mountain hikes. It's an event, and it's very very worthwhile. Everybody who's gone there has reported having like you know, some of the most transformative experiences of their lives have happened in those spaces.
Oh, wow.
Um, my partner Carol and I, my wonderful partner Carol and I, are going to be over in Colorado pretty soon as well, working over in Idaho Springs, and we're doing some weekends there. The first 2 weekends of October. So if people reach out to me, I would be happy to be able to send them some info, like the brochure of what's going to be transpiring, what they can expect with the process, and how the events are going to unfold and things like that. So, and then other than that, we're just working here at our clinic, overseeing dietas and helping people with what they need, and just it's jungle life, baby. So everything's running real slow here. The pace of life is definitely a little bit different than somewhere like Manhattan, where it's very go, 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 kill or be killed, eat or be eaten. It's very much, you know, oh, today we're going to go enjoy the sunset, going to go, you know, help this person with their purgativo, open their dieta. We'll take everything nice and slow. And isn't this lovely?
That's beautiful. And the Wi-Fi hung up for the whole conversation.
Thank God. Yeah.
The Wi-Fi
Uh,
held up, rather. Yeah. Amazing. And
amazing.
so if people want to find either like your retreat center or like some of these things that you're going to be doing with TWAS or the thing in Colorado, just remind everyone one more time, like where's the best place to reach out to you or to find you or to
Sure.
contact you?
Well, people can look up my name, Bryce Goertzen, Goertzen, and Bryce, Bryce, on Facebook, or there's Goertzen.bryce@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us on our website, downtoearthaya.com. The website's just getting redone. We're getting like the whole, you know, a logo and the whole business kind of aspects are sort of coming into the fold on that. I'm not exactly as business minded as maybe I should be about the whole thing, but unfortunately, this is the world that we live in. So, Down to Earth Aya would probably be the best resource to just kind of get a feel for who we are, what we're all about, what our experience is, testimonials as well from other people who have stayed with us, what can be expected, what the process entails, and yada, yada, yada.
Amazing. Well, there you go, people. If if that's something that interests you, check out Bryce. You know where to find him. And hey man, enjoy the jungle. Enjoy your day. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for having me on. It was a pleasure and awesome to meet you. And I'm looking forward to hearing some of the future episodes. I got quite a back catalog of some of the ones that I've downloaded from your series that I'm going to be listening to in the future. It's yeah, some fine guests you've had on. Very interesting folks.
Amazing. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
my friend.
great
And
to meet you as well. I really appreciate your interview style, your time, and the reason that you're doing this. I can see that you have a heart of gold, my friend.
thank you so much. And yeah, we'll leave it right there. Thanks so much.